We live. We live. We live right now. Today is January 13th, 2025, and we're doing pretty good. I just want to talk about something that I actually went through yesterday that I think and I hope that it will be helpful to you. It's when it doesn't work. What I mean by that is that the coffee simply doesn't work. Here's the coffee I'm talking about right here. This is a Sumatran coffee. This is a medium roast coffee. I did everything as best that you could in order to bring the best out of this coffee. I brewed it at 195 degrees Fahrenheit. I did about 5 or 6 pulses. The roast, or not the roast, but the brew ended in 2.5 minutes. I even put it on my EK43 for a grind size setting, or as a grind size. I did everything perfect. So that's what I did today. We'll get into yesterday. Let's taste it. Cheers. I'm going to force myself to drink this whole coffee throughout this whole talk, so to speak. What I really want to talk about is how sometimes coffees don't work. Sometimes they just don't work. I spent about an hour and a half kind of priding trying to figure out this particular coffee. I did multiple recipes. I did fast brews, slow brews, different grind sizes. I did it all. I even brewed a cup at 150 degrees, and I've been doing that lately. We'll talk about that another time or whenever that video comes out. And nothing was working. And this coffee is more acidic than sweet. So if you went too high with the temperature, all you would taste is that lemony mixed in with the grapefruit type of acidity. It wasn't necessarily pleasant. It was okay, but that's all the wow factor that it had. And some of the other things that I did in order to bring out the sweetness was lower down the temperature. That helped quite a bit, but that made the coffee very just blah. It didn't really do anything for me. And that's me. And I say that to say this is that this coffee is perfectly fine, probably perfectly fine for you. There's no dig towards you. That's just what I taste in this cup of coffee. And it's one of those things that I think about constantly. It's like, are we able to brew cup of coffee in a simplistic way? Because really, at the end of the day, I think that's really what we want. We want to be able to use a simple recipe, tried and true, in order to make a cup of coffee that's decent, that's good, that's tasty. We can move on with our day. Like I said, I spent an hour and a half of just trying different recipes and trying to see what was it was truly about. I never really finished a full cup of those coffees. So we're going to try our heart to try to finish this cup of coffee. And I wonder if I was too harsh on it. I used third wave water. That usually brings the best out of the coffee. And it didn't do anything. It's not doing anything for me right now. This is a coffee that I've had for a long time. This is a coffee that I put in the freezer in hopes that I will have a reason to bring it out of the freezer, roast it, and enjoy it for really what it is. Because the past couple of weeks, I've been loving this journey of third wave water. And for the most part, I was able to taste clarity that I haven't tasted in a long time. And one of the videos that I did talk about how if the coffee doesn't taste good with this packet, it's a shit coffee. And I'm sorry to say that this coffee, at least to me, is a shit coffee. It's not exciting. It doesn't do much to my palate. It doesn't do what I think that it should have done to my palate. You know, the funny thing about this whole coffee thing is that When I roasted this coffee as a dark roast, especially this morning, lively, tasty. I just wanted to keep drinking more and more and more of it. It did some magical things to my palate. I can taste the intricacies of the different flavors that I was actually drinking in this cup of coffee. And it presented it, it was presented in a way to where I knew that if I changed one or two variables here and there for whatever reason, that I was going to get a distinctly different tasting type of coffee. Not in a bad way, just in a different way. Those are the type of journeys that I love to go on. But in this case, this coffee doesn't do anything for me. In a medium roast, probably in a light roast, I kind of not really feeling it so much, at least right now. But as it states right now, it does nothing for me. At first, I thought I was over exaggerating a little bit. So I gave it a day to really think about the things that I wanted to talk about this coffee about. And I think the biggest thing that I really want to talk about or to explain to you of things that we go through as we drink coffee is that sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes the coffee isn't for us. Sometimes we don't gel for it for whatever reason. Probably we do need to come back to it later. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. When we get a bag of coffee and we drink it and we try to enjoy it and we can't really enjoy it and we're trying all these magician tricks in order to brew this cup of coffee that wows us all the time. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay. That's some of the things that I thought about yesterday. I was really trying hard to just get the things that I could out of this coffee, and it really wasn't working. It wasn't. And as I drink this and try to understand this coffee even more, even as it cools, it's not exciting. It doesn't tell the real story. And I know you may think I'm kind of crazy just talking about coffee this way, but it does that to me. And sometimes it disappoints you. And when it disappoints you, sometimes I think about my life. Like, where did I go wrong? You know? And I wonder about that sometimes if I'm taking this thing too seriously, if I care deeply about this chase for clarity for of taste in coffee, because wine doesn't do it for me, tea doesn't do it for me, a cocktail doesn't do it for me, coffee does for me. But when you feel that you've been let down, that you've been in a place to where you've lost all hope, at least in this coffee, and you've tried all your tips and tricks that you've given people, that you tried from others, and it's not really working, when coffee isn't special to you, that's more so what I'm getting at. Sometimes coffee is not special, even though this whole specialty thing is that we talk about quite a bit, right? This coffee isn't special to me. And this is just my opinion. And again, this is what I feel or sense right now in this particular coffee. You may feel differently for another different type of coffee for whatever reason. And I think that's perfectly okay because we're not going to gel with every single coffee that we encounter, go through in life. Sometimes the best cup of coffee is the one that we just don't like. That it tells us that it gives us a good indicator of what we don't like in this particular coffee for whatever reason. I think that's critical. I think that's important. It's something that we don't talk about as much as we should. Coffee is magical, but at times, excuse me, I wouldn't even say that it lets us down. It more so lets us know that this is the way it is sometimes. I wonder if it's, then I go deep into this rabbit hole about what happened at origin. What happened with the processing? Did I actually fuck up this roast? It shouldn't be that difficult to roast a decent cup of coffee. And I think that's where I'm getting at. When you have all these variables that you have tried and you prodded and try to see all the things that you can change, like you are a magician, like you are somebody who can craft something that should be magical and you don't get there, what do you do about it? And as I'm talking right now, as I think this through, a lot of times I think that it is what it is. It's fine. But it does suck though when you're on the hot streak where every coffee that you taste, you do a basic ass recipe and it's tasty, it's lively, it's exactly what you think a coffee should taste. Or you may be thrown in for a loop to where the coffee is just something to where it's so different that you just can't stop drinking it. You think about it. You're wondering if you did change this variable or change the temperature or change the grind size or did whatever. It was going to taste different in a good way. But when you're hit in the face with something that just doesn't work, what do you do about it? I'm trying to be more so in the moment here. I'm trying to understand this coffee even more so with its limitations to me. But if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And in this case, it just doesn't work for me. The acidity is there. It's not too crazy. And as soon as the acidity dies, it kind of just goes faint a little bit. There is some roundness to this coffee, but no real red fruit, no blueberries, nothing like this on this coffee whatsoever. More of a lemony type of grapefruity type of taste. So the sweetness is kind of elusive. It's there, of course, with the temperatures, but again, I've tried it all. If I spent over an hour and a half trying to brew a perfect cup in a Harvey V60 and it didn't work, I'm done with it. And truthfully, when I was going in, doing my thing in the morning time, drinking a different cup of coffee, even though it was the same origin but roasted darker, I wasn't even thinking about this coffee just because I was getting my fix. The thing that I always crave, just the taste of the flavors and the discovery and the journey that I go through when I drink a cup of coffee. It was awesome. It was sublime. And I guess the biggest thing that I'm going to take away when I really truly think about something like this is that sometimes if I tried a couple of recipes and it just doesn't work, it just doesn't work. That's perfectly fine. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I need to take my own advice. I need to just be like, okay, it's okay. If you don't like the coffee for whatever reason, that's fine. So I don't know if there's a lesson here. I guess I probably just said it, but sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes the coffee isn't special enough to us. And at times, we have to realize that not every cup of coffee is going to be our cup of tea. Not everything is going to work the way that we think that it's going to work just because it was grown a certain way at a right elevation, the right dirt. This person has won so many awards. It's a wet process or whatever anaerobic process that somebody is doing right now. It doesn't matter because if you take that cup of coffee and brew that cup of coffee and taste that cup of coffee and it simply tastes like shit to you, that's fine. Put it down, analyze it, understand what you're drinking, and just move on. The journey's still out there. And I think that's the biggest part about this is that I could be pissed about the situation. I probably spent a lot of time talking about this whole thing. But at the end of the day, I guess the biggest takeaway is that this is just one coffee of many that I'll be drinking that I will actually love to drink. So that's me just talking and rambling about when a coffee doesn't feel special enough. What do you do about it? I guess if you want the easy, simple answer, just move on. Enjoy it if you can. Give it to a friend. See if what they think about it. They may enjoy it. And just move on. Find that next coffee. So this is me just talking. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've gone through this, and we'll go from there. So, this is Oki at Everyday Beans signing off. Talk to you later. Bye.